Alright, so here's how it's gonna go down today. I'm gonna move my head around a little bit in front of the camera, and then we're gonna use this footage to see what we can do with my face. I'm not sure if I'll be able to move my eyebrows a lot, because really, when you're markerless, you have no dots drawn on your face. It's quite a challenge to track the face at all, especially my face that has very little details on it, but maybe my poor skin will be a good help. I don't know. So here we are, and here's the video I recorded. I'm gonna try and capture as much as possible, but probably certain parts of this video won't be capturable or something. We'll see how it goes, because still, like, it's kind of new to me and a very bold claim to be able to track any movement, but let's do our best. So first thing I do is I import the video into a clean After Effects project. And let's say we're gonna start from here, when I actually have my face in the shot, until here. So, without any plugins that you would have to pay money for, with very mixed results and everything, and with the fact that we need actual three-dimensional tracking, not just something that would be good enough for you to slap text or some kind of picture on top of the video that would follow the face. You need something that would actually track the three-dimensional rotation of the head. That's very important if we're tracking the object for Blender. The only real option we have, and by the way, it kind of includes the paid plugins, because I tried Keen Tools. I think this is the plugin that kind of tracks 3D objects. Didn't work at all for me during my real world project I had to do for a client. So the only actual three-dimensional tracking that's available to us in After Effects is the tracking of the camera. And it works really well. It's pretty much you grab a camera, you move it around a certain location, and then you run a track camera command, and it pretty much captures a huge amount of different details on the scene to understand how exactly the camera is moving in space. But in this case, we kind of need the opposite. Our camera is standing in place, but my head is moving around. I need to capture how the head is moving. And it's not actually possible. Tracking motion, any kind of motion stuff, even if we turn on position, rotation, and scale and whatever, it will still be tracking in like 2 dimensions, sort of, to make you able to slap some kind of 2-dimensional animation that's in sync with the movement of the detail in the video, like with this object. It would just appear that it's connected, but it's not an actual 3-dimensional positioning. So we need to stick to track camera. But how do we do it? Because of course the tracking camera will see that like the walls of the environment are not moving around, so the camera is just standing still. We need to fool After Effects into thinking that the whole environment is my head. So the first thing I start with, and I swear to God, this is not the last time I'm trying to record this video because I feel like it's gonna fail, but we use this roto brush on the actual footage, and we just select my head as cleanly as possible, something like this. And we simply track forward. And luckily in After Effects there's this really beautiful, awesome, powerful automatic rotoscoping. I did not expect it to have sound. So yeah, of course the moving mouth, the moving eyebrows will all be a challenge for the camera tracker. But thing is, in my experience, with not too much of that movement, it's capable to kind of, in a sophisticated way, ignore the things that fall out of the bigger picture of other details that are tracked more consistently. And that's why I really like this approach of using After Effects to capture the 3-dimensional movement that is a lot more consistent without having to place a single actual tracking point manually the way you would have to do in Blender. And in Blender, even if you do it manually, it's so hard to keep good quality of tracking. Things fall off all the time, like things need to be absolutely perfect in Blender. Like, it's only if you would have actual black and white markers on my face, then you would be able to really, like, track them very well. But with this situation, when it's just, you know, just a face, there's like no way. I had such bad results in there. And I watched a lot of tutorials, and the quality of the footage was 4K, like good quality with the face really close. It's really hard to make it work in Blender. It's close to impossible in most cases. So this is why I am really excited to share with you guys this approach right now. So the most interesting point is ahead, of course. It's about how to convert the movement that After Effects will still consider the movement of the camera. We'll need to sort of like invert it into the camera being static while the object moving in reverse. But it's not just reverse, and what does it mean to reverse a movement? It took me quite a lot of like big brain time moments to figure out how to actually rebake the motion of the camera into the motion of just an object in front of a static camera. My head is shaped like a bean. Okay, the result is here, and with the exception of one little bokeh light, oh, it's actually out there for a little while, I may as well go ahead and like erase it right now. So yeah, going back here with the frozen rotoscoping, I can just come in and sort of erase it like this, little by little. It will be a bit twitchy, but I think it's a minor enough detail to not have a problem with. Just making sure that nothing would be actually confusing. It may be nothing, you know. I should have, of course, just removed it from the actual rotoscoping, but I kind of ignored it, and it actually stayed around for a little while. And yeah, I guess the rest I don't have to touch anymore. So yeah, here's our final result. A little bit of the neck showing up in there, hope that won't be a problem. And the rest seems to be quite a clean rotoscoping. So now, presumably, if everything is possible, we just need to track the camera. I think it won't let me do it just like that, because yeah, it will tell me that any kind of effects applied on the footage will be ignored. So what you gotta do is you need to pre-compose, move everything inside, and now it's like a clean thing, and inside of which all the effects are hidden. So in here, I track camera, and it will just do its thing. And it might take a very long time, actually. I didn't really think it through. I just wanted it to be as real time as possible because I just don't like preparing for things. So yeah, I guess I'll see you guys later after this is done tracking. It's estimating 10 minutes, but I don't know, who knows. 10 minutes for just the first step of analyzing, and then it will be solving the camera for who knows how long. It's like over a minute long. So yeah, see you soon. Alright, here we are. So it was solving for 20 minutes maybe. It solved all of it, and I guess for, you know, something that doesn't need any of labor from you with markers and such, it was pretty good stuff. There's some weird scaling going on right here with some of the markers. But overall, it seems like it stays very consistent with positioning it somewhere behind my nose. Of course, we'll only be able to see how well it works in actual Blender, so let's go ahead and do that. But first, I wanna select a different marker. So what I end up with after all the calculations were over was just this, the footage, and that's it. And what you do after this, while having the 3D camera tracker effect selected, you select some of the points you wanna use as the location for placing your like empty to. And empties in After Effects are called null. So you create 3D camera and this null object, and it will be moving around with my head here. So now what we do is, and by the way, this involves a certain plugin, but it's free and you can download it in the video description, I guess. I found it on some other YouTube channel, but I don't remember right now. I hope I'll look it up and add that info. But overall, it's about exporting the composition data to JSON. Generally, it's a two-part plugin. One of them you install in After Effects to export, and another one you install in Blender to import. So right now I selected the two layers I wanted to export. I hit the button and I choose what exactly we're exporting. Selected layers only, check. Bake transforms, whatever that is. Time range, well, work area, doesn't matter, like all of it is the same in our case. So we go ahead and export that. And now in Blender, I'll just have this clean scene. Let's show the floor to not be that lonely. I guess let's just start with importing the data. So here, After Effects composition data converted, JSON. So this is that plugin, the second half of it. So I'll import that, and in here we have a few options of this plugin. Composition center to origin. I wonder if this will be useful. Scale factor 0.01. I wonder if that's necessary, but that's a default setting. Use comp resolution, create new collection. Yeah, let's create new collection. And I won't be touching this because if you don't touch it, it will be exactly in the same frames as your video is. So yeah, right now we can see how the camera is moving all over the place to compensate for the movement of my head. It's quite a drastic movement, but of course the object will have to move a lot less to achieve the same like visual changes in front of the camera. So first thing we do here is I have the camera selected and I will add a background image, and I'll choose the movie clip to actually see our video. All right, here we go. So here's our footage, and it starts from the very beginning, while the animation is supposed to start later. Maybe because I actually cropped and moved the clip in After Effects to the frame 0, so now it's still gonna be in frame 0. So yeah, in this case, if we have to do it manually, we just go to After Effects and we click right here. Yeah, especially because I pre-composed. It had no idea of if the footage would start earlier. It just had no information from that. So I would move the timeline pin to the very beginning, double click on the footage, and see at which time this pin is located right now. Yeah, this stuff may be kind of confusing at times. So thing is, many footages have their own beginning timeline numbers. So if we go into interpret footage main, right here we'll see the source timecode. This number is like what the very first frame will be counted as, like this time. Instead, we needed to start counting from 0, and that way we'll get the proper info. When I'm moving the pin around, we'll see exactly that's 1 second and 18 frames. 30 frames plus 18, 48 frames. So we need to be at frame either 48 or 49. That's one thing I'm not sure about, because different apps start either from frame 1 or from frame 0. And judging by the fact that the animation was imported to frame 0, After Effects is one of those apps. So we kind of need to adjust for that one frame, I think. But I'm not sure if it's like forward or backwards. So you kind of have to see and check, or just pay more attention, and I'm too lazy to do that right now. But overall, okay, I see a little bit of like a wiggle, as if it's like soft body movement. So maybe let's move it one frame forward. Oh yeah, this seems a lot more perfectly stuck in place. It's slightly under the skin, this marker. It's not obligated to be exactly on my skin, since it has no idea what my skin is, but overall it's moving with the core of my noggin perfectly in sync, which is what's actually important. And yeah, After Effects solved the movement, it solved the settings of the millimeters of the camera, which are probably actually not correct. Like, I don't remember which ones mine are on this lens. The problem is, with lenses, it's always complicated. Like, I would have a certain amount of millimeters on my prime lens, but also it's a cropped sensor, so you kind of remove a lot. It's like actually a different number in the end. I can never tell what the number is supposed to be. Maybe in the end, practically, it's like 25, 26 millimeters, and that's why it's showing that. There's no guarantee it would be perfect, but I do know that the results are actually pretty good. Let's see how it goes. So right now, as I mentioned before, what we have going on is our camera is moving around the static head. and it appears to be the opposite in the footage. Now we need to make sure things move correctly. Now, you might not really have to do that if you just need to slap some kind of 3D object onto your head, you know. You can just go ahead and just adjust it. So the forehead of Suzanne should be somewhere where my marker is to fit just right. And then you adjust the angle as well. Is this any good? No, it seems, yeah, I really went far. Okay, that's much better, but I'm definitely seeing a lot of tracking issues, like some twitching going on sometimes. And yeah, as I'm opening the mouth, it starts to scale my movement, which means the camera is coming closer and further away with each time I open or close the mouth. So yeah, with my very active movement of the face, of course, there is much higher margin of error. But yeah, for the first try, you guys can see how this is actual three-dimensional tracking, where I really rotate my head in all dimensions, and the Suzanne head is definitely following. In many cases, it's actually quite perfect. Needless to say that tracking in Blender would fail miserably from the start. I wouldn't even be able to get like this result right here. That, at least from the standpoint of like camera, where the track actually is located, is pretty good as it is. But I just wanted to finish this video with showing you guys how to convert the movement of the camera around the static object into the opposite, the movement of the object with the static camera. So let's have a look at how that's done, and we'll see exactly where the issues of this track is, and maybe we can do something about it. I don't know. I'll just go straight to the point. You create one empty, then you select the object that is supposed to start moving later. Now we hit Shift S and we move selection to active. And now our empty is exactly at the same place as our tracking point. So now we hit N, and right now I'll go ahead and try to copy the rotation as well. So I'll right click with our target point, the track null object being active, yellow. I'll right click on its rotation and hit copy all to select it. And nothing will happen. That's because we need to go to our empty and change the rotation system to quaternion, whatever that means. It has another dimension of rotation. So we go back to the same sequence of selection and right click, copy all to selected. Now we have our cube perfectly aligned with all the transforms identical with our track null. So step number 2, after fully aligning the thing, step number 2 is we select our cube, then we select our camera and we hit Ctrl P to parent the cube to the camera. And now if I play back the video, we'll notice that the cube looks like it's just stuck to the camera, like it's glued to it. And that's because it's now perfectly moving in space to remain completely static in the view of camera. And that's the way we start extracting the movement from the camera. But obviously that's not enough. How do we actually invert it? So the step number 3 is we select the track null, then we select the cube and we hit Ctrl-Shift-C to add the constraint. Or we can simply have the cube selected and go to the constraint tab and add copy transforms, and we select our track null. Now what's gonna happen is the movement is gone again from our cube, but the cube is still parented to the camera. So the cube remains perfectly still in the world while it's actually inside of the coordinate system of the camera. So it actually has to reverse all the coordinates to make sure it stays still in the coordinates of the world. And those numbers are exactly what we're after here. So now we do one thing. We select our cube and we go to Object, Animation, and Bake Action. And in here, it's very important to select very specific things. visual keying, which means we go for the final location, rotation, and scale of the object the way it shows up in the world, not inside of some other coordinate system, but in the world, the way we actually see it. Then we want to clear the constraint of copy transform we see on the right. So we check that, but we don't want to clear the parent, because if we clear the parent, we will pretty much just end up with a static object with 0 keyframes. There's nothing to move. But we need to still be under the parent, but we need to make sure it compensates all the movement to stay static without the help of our constraint of copy transforms. So that's why we're removing the constraint, but we keep the parent. And then, for good measure, we will override the current action, even though there's no actions, but who knows what your situation is. And we'll clean curves, just because if scale is not changing, and it isn't, it should just have one keyframe and then a clean straight line. And yeah, we're baking object, not bones. And so we go ahead and hit with all these ranges the same as our scene. We hit OK. And it's done. It's pretty fast, actually. So right now it got all messed up. So right now what we need to do is we need to bring this object's original position in this first frame of animation back to exactly the same position. So for that, what I would do is I would create, let's say, another empty. Let's make it a sphere. And I will do the same alignment the way I did it before. So let's start with making it a 4-dimensional rotation system. And then I shift click the cube, shift S, selection to active, right click the rotations, copy all to selected. Now it's aligned. And now the sphere of ours will be a parent of the cube. So I'll select the cube, select the sphere, Control P, object. And now I can move this around anywhere I want, and the animation will start from this new point in space. So the only thing that's left to do is select the parent sphere, select our target point, hit Shift S, selection to active, right click, copy all rotation to selected, and now this cube will be moving exactly the way my head would move. But for us to test that, we need to do one thing. We need to stop our camera from moving. So I'm gonna duplicate it, and I'm gonna call this like moving, and this one will be static. And the static camera, while it's still at the active one, I'll go right here in the camera keyframes, select them all while I'm on the first keyframe, select all the keyframes and just delete them. So now, while we do have the backup that's moving around, our main active camera is standing still. And now we can see through our static camera, let's hide everything else to avoid confusion. Like this, we have a static camera and a moving cube. And the cube appears to be moving perfectly tracked to the head. Well, as far as we could track it in After Effects. So this is it. Sounds like a whole lot of confusing actions, but really, if you go through it several times and try to understand what we're doing, overall, what we do is we just parent the object to the camera and then make sure the object still stays in place and bake those frames with that data of compensating coordinates. So now we simply have our cube doing the thing, and with that we can parent anything we want to this object. And by the way, you may have a question like, why would we need to go through this reverse tracking if on the camera it kind of appears correct, like it does move with the camera? Well, actually, in my project where I had to come up with this, I had a good reason for that, and that's because I had a certain headwear on the character, clearly, that had certain things that needed to react with physics to the movement of the head. And if it would actually be still in the world, I wouldn't be able to simulate that movement, because I wouldn't get any momentum. So that's why you may really need to track movement, one of the main reasons, I guess. Another reason, of course, if you, aside from your actor, you generally have more stuff in the scene that's supposed to be static in the world while the head is moving, so you should make the head moving, not the camera. So yeah, whatever you want to add to the head, you just parent to the cube. And the moment you do that, things start moving around. This is a bit closer. So there we go. You can definitely see when I'm moving my jaw, some stuff is going a bit wonky. And I think eyeballs a little bit react to the movement of my eyebrows as well. But overall, actually, it's a much better result than I thought at first. So yeah, like, this is the worst case scenario with the head that has 0 details on it. And we got it very much working with, yeah, like it's a little bit off at the beginning. The eyes, like especially at the very beginning, there's a little bit of a misalignment, but then somewhere around here it's just that this eye is quite a bit higher than this one, when in the end they get aligned better to the eyes the way I located them. Overall, this system is the best thing you have in your arsenal to get through with it and not cancel the project, but actually make it work. As I think about it though, this scaling issue when I open and close my mouth, that's like, clearly it's not actually scaling my end empty that I reverse tracked. It's actually like getting closer or further away from the camera. So I can actually use like a constraint, a limit distance between the camera and this empty. So what I would do, like, here's this distance, and I would go on surface. Right now, I made it completely stuck to the same distance at all times. So if I toggle it, there's actually certain movement that would be happening to get closer or further away from the camera. But since I know I kind of stayed still in front of the camera, well, more or less, not completely, but still, I feel like it might really compensate for that mouth movement. Yeah, here we go. Like, I'm actively moving my mouth, but the object is standing still. This is probably the best fix out there that can be used for this. This is way more stable. I'm really happy with this fix. Like, so cool how things really get much more improved comparing to, oh my god, moving of the mouth without the fix is way worse, but this is way more stable. Dope! But for now, this is it. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye! Oh my god, this is looking kinda creepy when things start moving like that.